We need to take care of some business. So that earlier conversation we were having about neighbors and the dogs in Oregon, and do you call the cops on your neighbors, or do you call the cops on seeing the guy riding the girl's bike down the street? There's so much stuff going on there that the powers that be want us to do that into make that into a podcast. So they've been editing it up to a podcast. By the way, you can subscribe to our podcast on iTunes. It's also on Podbean, Player FM, KZOZ.com on a daily download basis. Or the best thing to do is to subscribe to it, because then it gets delivered to your phone on a regular basis. So whether you're subscribing on Player FM or you're subscribing on iTunes, then you just get the show delivered to your phone, and you can catch up with whatever we're doing if you happen to miss us. But they want us to record a podcast intro for this, meaning we have to set up what it is. They've written a script for us, and we have that script sitting in front of us right now. And I don't know. Do you listen to like? I
don't listen to podcasts.
Like the NPR type, because
I don't listen to podcasts. I don't listen to podcasts. I'm starting to, because we're doing one now. So I've been trying to listen to some other people's just to see what they do.
Ours is different. Ours is different because ours is just we do a radio show and we make it available on demand to you later on.
Yeah.
Some podcasts, like the people that do podcasts that are just doing podcasts that don't do radio, they take it super serious, and they have to, really tell you a story and really get to the roots of what makes their story compelling.
A lot of podcasters take themselves a little too serious for me, right?
Absolutely. I would say that is 100% right. They take themselves a lot more serious than you do.
Right.
Don't say right.
It bothers them.
Yeah, it bothers podcasters when people say right.
Right.
It's showing a usage of stale vocabulary. Okay, so I've got the music for it. We just got to record the intro. You take lines 1 and 3. I'll do 2 and 4.
Oh, we're doing this now?
Yeah. Is that cool?
Wait. No. What do you want me to do?
You do lines 1 and 4. Wait, I have to start the damn music again.
Okay. 1. Are you talking about?
You do the intro and line 3. I will do 2 and 4.
Okay, I'll do this part.
Yeah.
And you want me to do 3?
Yes, 1 and 3.
All right.
And I will do...
You'll do 2 and 4.
2 and 4.
Okay.
Okay.
Is there music?
Yes, there is. When you're ready.
Welcome to the Jeff and Jeremy podcast. In this episode, we explore the dynamics of seeing a man who was suspiciously riding a bicycle. What's wrong with that, you might ask? It's a girl's bicycle.
Also in this episode of the Jeff and Jeremy podcast, is it prudent to call the cops on your neighbors? What about your neighbor's children?
Okay, not calling the cops is one thing, but how about the other side? The cops not calling you.
And we will explore the repercussions of having 6 Tibetan Mastiffs. If you live in the dog-friendly state of Oregon.
But first, we begin today's podcast with what can only be described as a lowest common denominator segment of Morning Shock Jock Radio called Dumbass of the Day. Enjoy your podcast.
How pathetic can some people be?
I got a ticket for not wearing my seatbelt. Does that happen to anybody yet?
Click it on ticket.
Click it or Thank you. I appreciate that. It's wise advice on billboards on the radio, and the man in the back of the room screams it at me. But somehow I did. I got a ticket. This is my thing. I don't understand how around the country now it's illegal to ride without a seatbelt. I'm not against the law. I think everyone should wear a seatbelt. But how did they make that a law and explain to me why motorcycles are still legal on the road? Right? Oh, yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, it's perfectly legal if I want to take an engine and strap it between my legs. I'm going to hurdle myself 70 miles per hour down the highway head first. But if I'm not wearing a seatbelt to my Toyota Corolla, I'm going to get a ticket. Right? Technically, it's more illegal for me to wear a helmet and ride on the hood of the car. than to be inside it without a seatbelt.
Dumbass of the day. 93.3 KZOZ.
Okay, we agree that riding a motorcycle is manly, right?
Sure.
You know what's not manly? Riding off on a girl's BMX bike. You can see pictures over on our Twitter and Facebook feeds. That's at Jeff and Jeremy, or you can log on to KZOZ.com. You can scroll down and you'll see them in the widgets. This is annoying. All right. This happened in Melbourne, Florida. This guy's a serial burglar, okay? He's accused of 36 thefts since July the 1st in West Melbourne. Now, Melbourne, Florida, not that big of a city. I mean, it's maybe 4 times the size of San Luis Obispo. And this guy has stolen 36. That's 36 things, including a little girl's bicycle, in which he drove off on. Is there no neighborhood watch in Melbourne, Florida?
Well, how far did he drive?
I don't know, because all they have is still shots from the family who had their bike stolen, or their little girl's bike stolen. They have still shots from their surveillance.
I had a roommate. You met him. His name's JB. You didn't like him, probably for a good reason, because he used to get kicks out of going around with his friends. And when in the evening time, when somebody would leave their garage open, he would run in and grab something. Beer out of the fridge. One time he grabbed some icy pops. And then there was one time that he took a little kid's bike and he rode it down the driveway.
Dick.
He comes back in the back of his truck, which his truck was one of these jacked up lifted trucks. So it never made sense because he had to put everything in the back of the truck, which is like you need a ladder to
Here's
get up there.
Here's the sad thing about your boy JD. Was it JD? JB.
JB.
Your boy JB.
James Benjamin.
JB probably looked like he fit the role riding off on the little kid's bicycle because he was that small.
He was a stocky.
He had something to prove.
Stocky, short,
with
fat
the big,
man.
He had something to prove with the big truck and the...
He got kick out of this.
Stupid behavior that he did. Maybe he's moved to Melbourne, Florida, and he is rolling around on kids' bicycles.
He's lucky he never got shot. I had a friend that was putting M80s in mailboxes to try to blow him up. Guy came out and shot him. He made him a paraplegic. Like it's not. You think you're having fun doing that kind of stuff when you're young, but the consequences.
Well, this guy's got to be a crackhead, okay? And like, how do you steal the little girl's bicycle? And he's like walking around with like some sack. Oh, he's got a backpack and oh no, he's got a towel. I guess it's because it's humid. I thought it was a sack, but it's a towel. So he has to wipe his sweat when he's doing his night.
Have you ever rode a kid's bike? You have a little girl. Like those little turns you have to do with your legs or the little pedaling.
I had to show my daughter how to push the pedals forward, and it was funny because I didn't have a bike of my own because we like walked down to the park so she could do it because they have flat surface. At the park.
She had to get on that thing.
So then I was like, well, I guess I'm going to show you how to do this. I have to get on your thing. So I get on her bicycle. I'm riding the bicycle. I feel like like the bear in the circus riding the bicycle. That's how this guy had to feel. Like, but how else are you going to get the bike out? But I mean, if you see a guy riding a little girl's bicycle with a backpack on and a towel draped over his shoulder, why aren't you calling the police? Nobody called the police?
Well, I don't know.
Come on.
What are you going to say to the 911 operator?
There's a guy
What's your
riding
emergency?
a little girl's BMX. I think he stole it.
What's your emergency, sir?
That's my emergency. There's a guy on a BMX. I'm afraid he's mentally unstable, and he's going to kill everyone because he's riding a little girl's bicycle.
Maybe he was just trying to show his daughter how to ride a bike.
Sometimes you have to embellish on the facts in order to get the police to show up.
That's good advice to pass along.
Yes. Well, hell. Desperate times call for
Here's my
desperate
thing.
measures.
It can't be that hard to catch a full-grown-ass man riding a little kid's bike. Like, they can't go that fast. Number one, the radius of the pedals, you can't go that fast. You should be able to run and catch this person.
Which is precisely why this is the worst neighborhood to live in the United States of America. Because not only did nobody catch him, but nobody even bothered to say, that's a little strange. So congratulations to West Melbourne, Florida for being the worst neighborhood watch program in America, and this guy for stealing 36. Like, he stole 36 things because nobody says anything about it.
You can just walk off and stuff.
You said that there was like a burglar in pursuit in your neighborhood, and you called the police on him.
Well, no, there was a suspicious person. I found out once I called the cops that he had just robbed the Walmart on the other side of the freeway.
Okay, hold on a second. Shoplifted from the Walmart and robbed the Walmart are probably two different things. I think you are painting when I think of somebody robbing the Walmart, I think of somebody going in there with a semi-truck.
I think it was more of a shoplifting situation.
Okay.
So I saw this guy. He was kind of darting around, and it was just very odd.
Yes.
And so when I came home, he was kind of walking into the neighborhood, and I got my dog, and we went for a walk, and then I saw him walking. We have these townhouses, and he was walking in between the two townhouses up to front doors, and then he'd come out, and then he'd walk around to the next one. He'd come out, and he was just wearing a white T-shirt, jeans, and he had a plastic bag in his hand, like the ones that got banned. And he just
and you're like, how long have you had that bag, bro? Yeah, that makes you suspicious in your own right there because it's got banned.
And you can just see in his eyes the anxiety, and And so I call.
You probably look like the guy in the surveillance photos in Melbourne, right?
Yeah, right. Did.
I mean, it looked exactly like that guy. I know.
And so,
because that's the look of a thief.
I call and I say, "Hey, listen, I don't know if this is anything, but this kind of the suspicious guy running around, and he's kind of going up to every single door. If he would have done that, it wouldn't have been that suspicious. Just odd. There's a lot of odd people in the 5 cities. So she's like, "Oh, really?" She goes, "What's he wearing?" It's this white shirt, blue jeans.
There's a lot of suspicious people in the 5 cities.
Right. What'd I say?
Odd. I was just saying that odd equals suspicious.
Oh, sure. Well, there's just a lot of odd and suspicious people.
Suspect. If I lived in 5 cities, I'd be calling police all the time.
Yeah. So she's like, "Oh, you know what? Thank you. They're actually on the other side. They're looking for him." And I'm like, "Well, he's on the other side of the freeway now." So they came over, and I got Tank. I threw him in the truck as my deputy, and then we went looking for him. And we were passing cops left and right, and the guy vaporized. I mean, I don't know, he was hiding under a rock in a garbage can. What he was doing?
That's what those guys can do.
He was gone.
Those shady people can do. Now we're asking you the question, okay? Because now, if he was on a girl's bicycle, you would definitely.
They definitely would have caught him. I'm sure.
You probably would have called the police a lot earlier, though, right? You would have been like, "Okay, there's really something suspect on this." You wouldn't have been like, "Let me check this guy out for
who knows what he
45
did to get that
seconds."
bicycle.
As soon as I see a grown ass man driving by on a girl's bicycle, I'm calling the police. We're asking you this morning, what is the last thing that you almost called the police about, but ended up not doing? And did it have consequences later on? Like, I mean, there's been times when people have sped by me on the road and driving erratically, and I thought, maybe I should call the police on those people, but I'm like, none of my business. And then later on, down the road, see their car turned over. I thought, man, maybe I should have called the police. Could have saved their lives, or saved their loss, at least. I don't know if they died or not, because I just kept going. I didn't care.
543-3693. I know what you're saying. That happens all the time.
Right.
You're like seeing somebody texting, and out where they're friends with JW's like, "Dude, call them in," and they're all over the road. And it's like, listen, I'm not trying to be, big brother, or think that I'm going to turn you in. But it's like when you're like swerving and you almost hit my truck, then yeah, I've got a problem with that.
What was the last?
But I've never called anybody in for that.
What was the last thing? I have unstable people.
There's something that holds us back from doing it.
I'm going to be PC about this, okay? Because I've recently been told that people without homes don't like to be called homeless. So I'm going to
vagrants. What do you call them?
I unstable. Because in this instance, well, their situation's unstable, right? And in this instance, they literally are unstable because they're like walking down the street yelling obscenities. Now, when I first moved to San Luis Obispo, I would have been like, okay, that's really weird. I'm going to call the police. And I probably did call the police. Now, there was a guy riding down my street the other day screaming obscenities to the point where I was out in the front yard working on some gardening, and I look over and my wife was in the backyard. She comes running through the house out into the front yard, and she's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "What was all that cussing for?" I was like, "That wasn't me. That was the guy riding the bike down the street." She's like, "Were you getting in a fight with him?" I was like, "No, it's just the guy riding a bike down the middle of the street." Now I don't even care. I'm like, "Oh yeah, look at that guy screaming obscenities driving down the street. There's a normal day in San Luis Obispo." I've become desensitized to it. Didn't call the cops on him. Didn't even bat an eye. I just kept gardening.
So you ever almost called the cops, but you didn't? It was the constant case in college. I was always trying to get my wife, now girlfriend at the time, not to call the cops on our neighbors upstairs.
Because it's a difficult situation because they're your neighbors.
They have to live upstairs, and they can be jerks and as noisy as
you call
they
the
want.
cops on them, and they're still your neighbors. Like, chances are, unless they committed murder, they're not going to be your neighbors anymore. So it's a catch-22 in many instances.
So, if you remember college, I scheduled all my classes for late so we could go out and drink in bars and things like that. She, on the other hand, did not go out to bars. She went there to get an education. So her classes started at 8 o'clock in the morning. So it was one of those days where we'd been out and drinking, and she wakes me up. She goes, "Oh, my God, the neighbors, I'm calling the cops." And I'm like, "Oh, don't call the cops. They're fine.
Whatever you do, don't call the cops.
It's only going to make it worse." And then I pass back out asleep, and then she goes up there, and she bangs on the door, and they open the door, and she, it's like, "Hey, man, can you keep it down? I got class in the morning." And they all just kind of laughed at her and shut the door.
Yeah, this is college, sweetie.
So it's the first thing she did. She goes, "Screw you, ass a-holes." And she came downstairs and she called the cops. And they were evicted like a week, not even within a week.
It worked.
It worked.
No way.
It worked.
So now you're
I don't know if it worked.
Believer in calling the cops.
But apparently they'd had other problems and issues, and they hadn't been paying their rent. And then this complaint with the police department was the last straw, and so they evicted them out, and they got. Out
Sometimes
and then no one lived above us the rest of the year that we lived in that apartment.
Sometimes that pays off. Then, if that's the case.
Yeah, I think it's rare.
Except for the apartment complex, didn't the Digital Underground come to town or something like that, and they rented out?
Yes,
they rented out the apartment.
Yeah. So that's what happened was. Then we renewed our lease another
Humpty
year.
Dance guys?
We lived there another year because there was nobody living above us. We're like, "Oh, this is great," until they started renting it out on weekends as like an apartment or like a hotel room.
It was VRBO before VRBO,
right?
But they had struck up a deal with like the local bar in town that brought in acts to be like, "Okay, we'll go ahead and rent out our apartment for a year." So like the Digital Underground was like staying above you guys.
Dude, and it's like, this is a 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment above us, and the whole floor was flexing.
Constructed in the 60s.
Because they were doing the Humpty Hump. Hi, thanks for hanging on. Go ahead.
Never call the cops.
Never call the cops at all?
Never call the cops on somebody.
Why is that?
It's just not good.
Why is it not good?
Never good.
Because he's a thug. Are you a felon?
Do snitches get stitches?
Negative.
Then why don't you not call? Why do if somebody's doing wrong, you call the cops?
If I see somebody trying to get into my neighbor's house, break into my neighbor's house, I'm calling the cops.
Yeah, that's that's a different circumstance. Some dude just riding a bike down the street. Yeah, I'm not calling the cops on him.
And he's cussing at the top of his of his lungs.
Is there a crime against? Is that a crime?
It's freedom of speech, but it is definitely a situation worth monitoring. Like maybe I put a little police officer, trailing him a little bit because that's not normal behavior.
Well, he didn't call the cops on the guy.
I should have.
He just thought he should have.
I should have because who knows what that guy went on to do.
I would have turned the hose on him. Hey, I got kids, man. Watch your mouth.
We're in a drought. I can't do that. That's a waste of water.
Thanks, Travis.
Thank you.
A lot of great, valuable input.
Yeah.
Right there.
Thanks for
Never call the cops.
Contributing so much to the conversation.
Jeff and Jeremy in the morning.
Did your proud do-it-yourself self finally realize yourself needs someone else to do it yourself? With 805 Reviews, you see reviews from Google, Yelp, and others on everything local from car repairs to plumbers, plus discounted deals and fun things to do on the Central Coast. Best of all, there's no membership and no login required. Download free at the App Store or go to 805reviews.com. That's 805reviews.com. 805 Reviews. Get the most out of the 805. Are the in-laws coming into town for the weekend last minute, and you're looking for anything to keep them busy? Get the information and insight you need, all in one place. With 805 Reviews, you'll see reviews on local businesses from Google, Yelp, and others, plus discounted deals and tons of ideas on fun things to do in the 805, all with no membership and no login required. Download free at the App Store or go to 805reviews.com. That's 805reviews.com. 805 Reviews. Get the most out of the 805.
Yeah, I want to call the cops on my neighbors all the time because they're so noisy and they've got kids. kids and they run around after 10 o'clock at night. But I don't know what's the appropriate time you call on something like that.
You can't call cops on kids, though. I mean, the kids are just being kids.
They shouldn't be outside at 10 o'clock at night running around screaming and yelling. It sounds like somebody's getting murdered over there.
It's summertime. I mean,
no, school's back in session. Hate to tell you.
That is true.
Hate to tell you. On a Wednesday night at 10:15 at night. But I mean, I don't know. Is it 11? Like, what time is the appropriate time to call?
I don't think you should call the cops on any kid situation. I mean, kids are kids, and it's hard.
No, well, I'm not calling on the kids. I don't want the kids arrested. I want the parents to get a lesson.
Take a little bit more responsibility.
They don't know how to obviously be parents. Your kids shouldn't be outside screaming and yelling, disturbing the neighbors after 10 o'clock at night. Mm-hmm. Now, I realize my situation's unique. I get up early, so I go to bed early.
And you're like one of 2% of the population that absolutely hates kids. So that's why you would call the cops on kids.
I don't hate kids.
You hate irresponsible parents.
I hate parents that don't know how to take care of their kids. Just like I don't like pet owners that don't pick up the poop after themselves. That's a whole nother thing.
Why don't you go have a discussion with the parents of these kids and say, you guys are worse than pet owners that don't pick up their poop because you let your kids. No, I'm serious. They're your neighbors.
See, that's the thing. I don't know what the
coexist.
dilemma is. Should I go do it? And then there's something escalates, and then maybe there's a physical altercation, or they hate us even worse. Or do you call your neighborhood watch, your local police department to go talk to them?
You know what? So my neighbors,
because I don't know these people.
My neighbors have hated me since day one.
What do they hate you for?
That they moved in
because you have kids. You're a bad parent.
No, they moved in because now they have kids, and it's a newborn, so it's up screaming at all hours of the night. But they moved in on the day of Super Bowl 49. If you remember Super Bowl 49, that was a crushing defeat that the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, you don't have to remind me, but we had a big party at your house.
And there was a huge Super Bowl party in my backyard. And I told them, I saw them moving in, and I went over there. I was like, hey, just so you know, this is not something we do on a regular basis.
Jeff, we all left after the game. We were all pissed off.
Right.
So it was over early.
Do you remember how loud it was in the backyard?
No.
And they work odd hours.
I didn't. I don't remember it being loud.
We have dogs, and the dogs, we live on a busy street, and they do deliveries across the street.
But I was drinking a lot.
So UPS is in and out of my there's a business across the street. He's a glow stick distributor guy. And the glow stick distributors constantly having shipments delivered all day long. Well, they keep odd hours, my next door neighbors do, whereas the husband's up at 2 o'clock in the morning working and then sleeps during the day.
I understand that.
And he works from home.
See, I'm in the same predicament. I have odd hours.
Right.
And I understand that. And
absolutely.
as a person that has odd hours, he should understand that there's going to be noise during the day.
Yeah, absolutely. But he has come to me and he's said something to me about my dogs barking because when the UPS trucks, which we've lived there for 7 years, 5 years prior to them moving in.
Your dogs bark a lot.
They bark whenever a UPS truck pulls up.
Why don't you do something about that?
Well, I did. I was like, wow, I had no idea that it would be that much of a problem to you. What I'll do is I will make sure that they stay in our bedroom in the back corner of the house furthest away from your house. Then that way they won't, you won't.
Yeah, you're trying to put duct tape on the problem. Trying to put a Band-Aid on it. You need to get your dogs to stop barking.
It's actually been a solution to the problem. So
it's worked.
Thanks for your Donald Trump assessment on that one.
Well, listen, it sounds a little bit like a Band-Aid, doesn't it? Just move them to the garage.
Did you want to tweet that out on your Twitter feed?
Settle down. It sounds like a Band-Aid solution.
This is what I'm trying to tell you.
Getting your dogs to stop barking.
But this is what I'm trying to tell you.
You just put them in a garage.
Is if you have an open line of communication with your neighbors, then you will come up with a solution to the problem. Like, hey, kids, quit jumping on the trampoline or whatever the hell they're doing until 11 o'clock at night. You tell the neighbors that, and the neighbors will take it into consideration at least before you call the cops. Because nothing will piss off the neighbors more than you calling the cops on them because their kids are up.
Well, I'm just saying, I'm not saying I'm going to. I just don't know which way to go on it. Do I go over there and try to handle it myself? or do I just avoid that situation?
You handle it yourself.
Since I've lived there for almost 4 years.
Be a man.
I see them all the time. I wave, they don't wave back.
You be a man about the situation, and you confront the neighbors.
Are you listening to what I just said? Did you hear what I just said?
You don't call the teacher.
I wave all the time, and they don't wave back. They don't wave back.
Big deal.
They don't like us.
Then you need to talk to them about their kids and see where that goes. And then if they continue or it escalates more, then you call the teacher and you say, teacher, Tommy's picking on me.
So why is it okay for you to call the cops on a guy that's driving down the street on a bicycle swearing?
I didn't say I did.
But I have a problem with somebody I have to live next to.
Remember.
And I'm saying, I'm just asking a question.
Remember, I did not call the cops on that guy.
Yeah, but you said you should have.
I should have called the cops on that guy, and it does not affect me directly because he doesn't live next door to me. He was riding down he lives in the creek bed.
He could be down the street. Hi, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Oh, my. So I had a crazy neighbor who was in Vietnam and older and lived by himself, and we lived in an apartment complex. And
okay.
He would party it all night, all hours of the night. And so my husband said, hey, man, do you mind? We have children. Can you just quiet it down? And he said, go F yourself. I'm going to do what I want.
That's what I'm afraid of.
Yeah, so one night he took it too loud, and it was like 3 a.m, so we called the police. Oh, man, he popped our tires, threatened us.
See? This is why you don't call the police on your neighbors.
Well, you either get F'd, go F yourself, or you pop tires.
All right. Exactly.
All right, so your advice is don't call the cops? Is that your advice?
Yeah, but either way, you're depending on how sane the neighbor is.
You can't move here. Thanks.
I think
you can't move here. It's too expensive. You try to find a good deal. It's
you take the hit in the very, very unfriendly rental market.
Listen, I feel like it is, it's kind of the loser way out or the pussy way out. The pansy, that's the best word. Thank you.
The pansy way out.
The pansy way out, just to call the cops and go over there. I should just go over there and say, hey, listen, I go to bed early. I don't know. It's just like, but here, let me give you a little history just real quick.
I wonder if a 911 operator would tell somebody that, by the way. If you call the cops, you're like, yeah, these kids are up past 10 o'clock and I need to go to sleep to work. If they would say, because this is why I could never be a 911 dispatch, because I would be like, yeah, it sounds to me like you're a gigantic puss. You should go get some earplugs. Have a good night.
Could be in a pansy. Just go over there and talk to your neighbors. So my landlord that I rent from bought a house back in the 60s on the street, but he had a long piece of property in the back. It's a very common thing in AG. Anyways, so these people built their house and they have these floor to ceiling windows to look at the Santa Lucia mountain range and out towards the Cuesta Grade. And then my landlord comes in and builds a house right in front of him. So you understand the situation? They don't like me, and they don't even know me. I don't know if they think I own the house or if I rent the house. It doesn't matter because my landlord built this house right in front of these floor-to-ceiling windows.
Maybe you should get a big
Now,
sign.
I have this beautiful view of the mountain range, and they look at the side of our house.
Don't you have a friend that has like an awesome printer service? Like they make posters and stuff?
Yes.
Who does that?
That's the folks out at Broken Earth. They do also imaging.
Okay, so they make those posters for us from time to time.
Right.
And
billboards.
What you should do is you should ask them to make a poster that just says, I am just renting, don't be mad at me, and put it up. Please tell. And then,
what if I took a picture of the mountain range and I had him print that on there and put it on the side of the house?
There you go. And then you put a little asterisk underneath that message and the picture, and it says, please tell your kids to be quiet after 10.
Oh.
Hello.
Yeah, you got your door open.
Okay.
That sounds awesome. What kind of... Wait. Do you drive like a Tesla or something?
No, that's a Ford. That's a Ford.
Ford.
Oh, that's a cool one.
It's an Explorer.
Okay. Oh, nice.
Okay, not calling the cops is one thing, but how about the other side? The cops not calling you. I was in a band. I ended up hooking up with one of the bikers' girlfriends.
Uh-huh.
She went totally wacko on me. She was drunk. I'm 18. I'm drunk. And so the cops pull us over, and
that's okay in Mentone. It's a different country,
I go to
Jeremy.
get out to say, hey, I'll handle this because I want my life spared from this chick that when I woke up had lit candles all around me.
So she kidnapped you.
So I wanted freedom from this
to show you
situation.
The ways of the world.
Yeah, and the cops just laughed at me.
Like if that was a different, like if you were a female and that was a male, that would be a totally different situation, right?
Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah. Well, you really picked the winner this time, buddy.
Sure, buddy. You're being held against your will. Have a good day now.
Yeah, you find your own way home this time, dickhead.
Well, hey, we're really happy that you survived the whole thing. Wow. That sounds like flashback or a bad dream, or he was drinking a little bit too much with the whole candles around him and things like that. But he was drinking a lot and he was drunk and he wanted his life spared.
I think just as a rule of thumb, any place that has lands after it is a bad place to go.
Just saw this story.
Red lands, bad lands,
right?
Outside lands. It's a bad place to go.
Talking about your dogs and your neighbors and not liking them. And both sides of your house now, right? Because having the seniors at some point.
They're fine. They're cool with it.
They complained at some point,
So what happened was the seniors realized that it wasn't my dogs. It was a dog that was 3 houses over.
Okay.
But for whatever weird acoustic dynamic there is in my neighborhood, that dog sound traveled through all the other houses. It didn't bother us, but it bothered them.
But your other neighbor had a problem with your dogs. You moved your dogs in, you fixed the problem.
They sit in our...
which is good.
They hang out in our bedroom now.
Because
of open lines of communication.
In the liberal state of Oregon, they have just... a court has just ordered a family that they have to cut their dog's vocal cords because it's annoying neighbors in the neighborhood. Can you imagine... If you had to go to court and they're like, yeah, you're going to have to cut your dog's vocal cords or get rid of your dogs.
That's not very Oregon of Oregon.
Somewhere in Oregon, and this is actually in the Rogue River area. I think that's somewhere kind of it's not quite the middle of Oregon, but it's not quite the...
it's South Oregon.
It's like southwestern Oregon.
Yeah.
So anyways, this couple...
extreme western.
Had just under 4 acres, and they had a couple of big dogs and Tibetan... Mastiffs. Okay.
Oh, my in-laws have
big dog.
It's huge.
They have 6 of these dogs, Jeff.
Okay, these I don't know. I'd hate to see their monthly feeding bill because these dogs, like this dog, when it stands up on its hind legs, is as tall as me.
As a 6-foot man.
And when it's standing on its 4 legs, its nose comes up to my rib cage.
Yeah, Mastiffs are big dogs. I know that. And a Tibetan Mastiff, I think, has long hair. Is that right?
Yes.
I think I've seen these. Yeah, good-looking dogs.
They keep it outside in the winter, and it's like 10 degrees in the winter where they live.
Oh, jeez. But they're used to that, right?
Yeah, he likes it.
So they use these 6 dogs to kind of keep off predators for their sheep and other things.
That's exactly why my in-laws have them.
And your in-laws don't live that far from the road.
No, I mean, it's only like 100 miles.
It's probably by car hours, but yeah, as the crow flies.
It's only about 100 miles.
So anyways, these dogs have been causing problems for years to the point where the victims in this, we'll call them the Cranes because that's their last name, they said their kids were afraid to come home from school because the dogs would jump up on the fence that was adjacent to their property and would bark at the kids. They ended up getting awarded $238,000 in damages, and the judge in the case,
damages for what?
For disturbance, for scaring the kids, for these dogs barking at all hours of the night. Apparently, they start at 5 a.m. and they don't stop. And they had to go out and hire like a daycare service to send their kids to that. Then they had to pay for because their kids didn't want to come home because of these dogs. So both parents worked
to move.
Well, they didn't, and they took them to court, and they got $238,000.
That's a terrible precedent.
But this is where it gets to me almost over the line. And the judge ordered all 6 of these dogs to have their vocal cords cut.
Whoa!
So they've appealed it, and they lost the appeal. The decision stands.
Now as. Knowing somebody who owns this dog, that's why you have that dog, is because it wards off predators. If you live in a rural area, which it sounds like they have 4 acres, right?
Yeah, they have sheep and goats and chickens.
Okay, so these dogs
have
protect
almost 3.5 acres.
Your livestock. These dogs protect your livestock. And coyotes like to come around, and coyotes are deathly afraid of these dogs. That is why Bear was purchased for my in-laws, because the coyotes would come around and
this dog's big
and try to get things that were in the yard, some livestock that they had. They had horses, they had some cattle, and they also have some sheep. And Bear goes, boo, boo, boo. I know what they're talking. I know the frustration of this family because Bear will start barking at 3 o'clock in the morning, but it's peace of mind for my father-in-law and my mother-in-law because they know that their livestock, they're not going to have to clean up dead livestock, 2 miles down the county road that they live on later on, that they've invested their hard-earned money for to help, earn the bottom line for their living. I don't agree with this at all because now not only do they have to fork over $238,000 is a lot of money. Okay, that is a lot of money in damages for dogs that bark.
Well, this has been a problem for 5 years. They've been dealing with the neighbors for 5 years. The police have been out there. They've had noise ordinance. I don't know what they've had. They've been taken to court year after year, but instead of, doing something about it, they just let it go. And now there's a court that agreed that, you're in the wrong there. You're disturbing your neighbors to the point where it's caused them pain and suffering, and you owe them $250,000.
But if you write that check for $238,000 to these people and you say, here's your $238,000, then the judge is like, by the way, you're going to have to remove the vocal cords of your dogs?
Yeah, my uncle.
That seems inhumane, actually.
My uncle did this to their little dog because he was a little yapper, like your dogs. And they don't lose the bark altogether. It gets raspier and it comes down. I got a video here. What do you say? That's what it sounds like.
That sounds painful.
It sounds raspy.
That sounds painful.
Sounds like Tom Likas. Have you ever heard him talk lately? Maybe this is what he had done.
Because he was at the podcast thing.
Yeah. This is what he sounds like now.
He did. He said, I've been in radio for 40 years. I was like, well, it sounds like you've been in radio for 40 years.
So, but the problem is their dog, they had it done like 5 or 6 years ago, and now her bark's coming back. It doesn't hold. Your vocal cords either grow back or something happens, and then now she's barking at a regular rate again. So then, it's only you have to pay for this surgery, which I'm sure is very expensive, but it's only going to last for a number of years before it comes back.
You get sued by your neighbors for $238,000. The judge finds in favor of them. You have to pay them $238,000 because something you had was being too noisy. Then they tell you to quiet what you had as being too noisy, which is remove the vocal cords of your dogs. The reason why you even bought the dogs is so they'll protect your livestock. Eventually, they're trying to drive this family out of that neighborhood.
It's 6 dogs at probably, let's just say, $5,000 of surgery. Because, vets, and you don't have insurance probably, right?
Right.
That's $30,000.
And insurance is not going to, that's elective, so it's not going to take care of that. And these are expensive dogs to begin with. You buy them for their size and their bark and their bite. This family is essentially getting driven off their ranch. I don't know if that's necessarily fair, but what would you do? Let's say that they have the income to take care of all this. The dogs, the vocal cord, they abide by the law. They pay the $238,000. What do you do as retribution for all the pain and suffering that you've endured now? What do you do, just blast Metallica at the house all day? With the loudest sound system that you could possibly have? Dogs are being quiet. Dogs are fine. Or even worse, like Slayer or Lamb of God.
See, that's the problem.
Or Baby.
Yeah, it never stops. It never stops.
Jeff and Jeremy in the morning. Listen online at kzoz.com.